it is written in other places, in many places. Be'inyan Torah mitzvahs, over there it talks about the idea of Torah mitzvahs. So it's explained like this. Sometimes it comes across that Torah is higher than mitzvahs. And sometimes it comes across that mitzvahs are higher than Torah. That the place? Yeah. The idea is that they're actually both true. Since the Torah is from the level of moicha, and the mitzvah is the level of galgalta. So there is an advantage in the moich which is not in the galgalta, because the moich is a level of pnimis. That is a higher level of chitzonis. So, if you measure what is pnimis and chitzonis, so there's a mila in Torah, because the Torah is pnimis. Pnimis is always has a higher mila. It is more on the inside. But on the other hand, it's already the level of ishtalshlus. It's already chokhmah vatzilus. We're talking about mitzvahs is a higher level. It's chitzonius. So in other words, a higher level of chitzonius versus a lower level of pnimis. So on one hand, there's a mila in chitzonius, but it's a higher level. That's the level of gulgalta, the level of mitzvahs. And then another level, when you talk about pnimis, so there's a mila in Torah because it's pnimis. So according to this, we have to say, since Torah comes from chokhmah d'atzilus, and with regards to chokhmah d'atzilus, we can say so. That although the level of chokhmah d'atzilus is pnimis, and the galgalta is chitzonis, ach lefi chitzonis hakeser, because it's the chitzonis hakeser, lochein b'bchina zu higva yisma chokhmah d'atzilus. That's why in that level it's higher than atzilus. Ba'afa pikein. And still, it's not a stira. We can still say, there's an advantage in chokhmah, because it's level of pnimis, and the galgalta is chitzonis. V'chein mashma be'etz chayim shom sharcho beis perik hei, u'beperik aleph ois beis, b'mashakosuv. There it says, Lochein b'bchina zu hamoichin heim ikrim. At this level, the moichlim become the main. So basically, you see, we're talking about just the level of chokhmah d'atzilus we're talking about, and we're talking that moichin are. We're talking about that moichin is atzilus and the mitzvahs is keser. So we're saying, and that's higher. That in a way, there's an advantage of the moichin over mitzvahs, or Torah over mitzvahs. But here's the key: Abel moichas timo. But when we talk about the moichas timo, the hidden level, in other words, not the moichin of atzilus. We're talking about the moichas timo. That's the moichin of the arech ampin, the moichin of keser. That's the moichas timo. Shuhi pnimis hakeser. He lemailo legamri mibchinas galgalta. That is totally higher than the level of the galgalta. Shehi chitzonis shaloi. the Galgalta becomes the external to Moiches Timo. Basically, if we're going to measure mitzvahs, the Galgalta, next to Chochmah Atzilus, then there is an advantage of mitzvahs, Galgalta. But if you're going to measure the Galgalta next to the Moiches Timo, next to the Moichin of Arichampin, the Moiches Timo, over there the Moiches Timo is much higher than the Galgalta, and therefore, and the Galgalta is considered an externality to the Moiches Timo. The Moiches Timo, who abchina shebekeser she'ein minyan eser sfiras klal, because the level of Moiches Timo is the level that is not in the eser sfiras at all. Because before we say when we don't count the eser sfiras is when we're talking about the pnimis of keser. If we talk about the pnimis of keser, we can't count. If we talk about pnimis of keser, we can't count keser as one of the 10 spheres, because in the level of the pnimis of keser, it's not counted. It's not part of the spheres. It's beyond. The spheres klal. Pshita the bechina zu hulamaila legamre bechina shebi keser shu b'minyan eser spheres. The level of rotzen in keser, the level of gulgolis in keser, is counted in the part of the eser spheres. Because when we count chitzonius, so keser becomes one of the 10 spheres. But when we count pnimius, we don't count keser. Why? Because Moiches Timo cannot be counted over there. So Moiches Timo has to be way higher than the level of the Gulgoilus, because the Gulgoilus, the chitzonius keser, the level of rotzen keser is counted as part, sometimes when we count the chitzonius as part of the 10 spheres, and the level of Moiches Timo is not counted because it's much higher. Ki habchina she'ein b'minyan eser spheres, the level, why is it not in the 10 spheres? It's part of the lower level of the creator, which means it's not yet a creator, it's not a sphere. Okay, so now we're saying that the level of Moiches Timo, is the level of the lower level of the Meitzil. It's so it's not the Chlal, because it's not part of the Eser, so it's considered to be the lower level of the Meitzil of the creator, not from the created being. So Ba'afal Gav the Beitz Chaim Shom Isa, although in the Beitz Chaim over there we see the Zoh B'chinas Atik, that is the level of Atik. U'Moiches Timo B'chinas Arichampin. So we see that the Moiches Timo is not at the level, in other words, the level Tachtoinish Matzil is the level of Atik. But this is already in Arichampin, this is already in Arich, the level of Moiches Timo. So how could we be saying that the level of Moiches Timo is so high, it can't come down, it's not in the Eser Spheres, it's way higher than Golgoilus. Over there we say it's still in Arichampin. But that's what here it was explained over here. That Shemoiches Timo, that in the Moiches Timo, Ubchinas Tainug, Shubchinas Ein Sof Mamash. In the Moiches Timo, there is the level of Tainug, and the Tainug is Ein Sof Mamash. So B'meila, while it is Take still in the level of Arich Ampin, Moiches Timo, but it has in itself from the level of Tainug, which is the Ein Sof Mamash. But it's what it means to say is that the Bechinas Atik, Shehu Bechinas Tainug, the level of Atik, which is the level of Tainug, it reveals itself in the Chochmas Timo in a Pnimius Mamish. In Memela, the level of Meicha Chochmas Timo is on a much higher level. Mashenken Bechinas Galgalto, as opposed to the level of Galgalto, that's his Chitzonis, Shei Chitzonis. Over there, you don't have these Galus Hatainuk. Only in the Chochmas is Galus Tainuk. Moshikosu Beitz Chaim Sharcho Beis Perikei Barichas. Balkein, Meichus Timo Eine B'minyan Asasfiris. And that's why the Meichus Timo is not counted as part of the 10 Sfiris. Al Derech Moshikosu Beitz Chaim Sharmim Al Perigimel. Why? Because since there's the Hisgalus of the Ein Sof, the level of Tainuk, the level of Atik is Hisgala in Chochma, in an open way, in a level of Pnimius, we can't count it because there's Ein Sof already. That's not part of the created being. It's not part of the Netzal, it's part of the Maitzah. Okay, so this is one thing we said over here. The summary of this, what we learned till now, the summary of this idea is that while we're saying that there is a maila of Torah, because it comes from Chochmah Da'atzilus, over Keser, over Mitzvahs, which is the Rotzen, that's only relative to Chitzonis HaKeser. Over there you can say that there is a mile in mitzvahs over Torah. But the level of Moichas Timo, that is the level of Moichas Timo of Arich Ampin, the level of Moichas Timo, that is higher than mitzvahs. That's the level of Moichas Timo is beyond the Golgolos. Even though the Golgolos surrounds it, that is much higher. That is considered Mamash Ein Sof. That's these Galus Atik that comes down in the Arich. The problem is in the other places, the Eitz Chaim, over there it says that even relative to Moichas Timo, still the Galgalta is higher than that. Over here we're saying that the Galgalta is higher than Chabad Chochma Vatzilus. Not of Moichas Timo, but Moichas Timo is higher than Galgalta. That's the Ein Sof Mamish. But in the other Maimarim, over there it says that the Galgalta is even higher than Moichas Timo. Omnon bebiur apostle givu levush malchus mevuar gam legabe v'chinas Moichas Timo. That also with regards to the Moichas Timo, shayich loymar sheyesh v'chinas begalgalta shigavoya yesa. That even relative to Moichas Timo, we still can say that in the Galgalta, there is a level which is higher than Moichas Timo. Moichas Timo, he chochma shebekesa. Vu moker ha'Torah. That's the chochma kes moker ha'Torah, which means we brought it up a level from chochma da'atzilus to chochma shebekesa. To Moichas Timo, because Chochmah Da'atzilus comes from Moichas Timo, which is Chochmah Arichampi. But V'galgalta u Keser Shebe Keser, so it's Keser within Keser. V'humoker HaMitzvahs, it's the sort of mitzvahs. Elo shu b'chitzonis chulu, it's level of chitzonis. V'chein is bayed oid b'makom achad. So neged ma shekosu beitz chaim sharchov beis perikei anal. We were discussing the whole time that only relative to Chochmah Da'atzilus we can say that the Galgalta mitzvahs are higher. But when we talk about Moichas Timo, over there that's higher than the mitzvahs. Over there, the most higher. So basically, we have to say, Shapnimi is the keser shalamaylo legamri megalgalto. So where is the pnimis of keser, which is totally higher than galgalta? So over here, we're already saying the galgalta is higher than meichus timo. We're sorting out the levels in Kabbalah. Here we're saying that the galgalta is higher than the level of meichus timo also. So what level is the pnimis hakesa, which is higher than galgalta? So what it says in Eitz Chaim, Shakeser Shaloi Hu Oy Ruchni Makif Olav. So over there it says that his keser is a spiritual light which surrounds him. Keser Shaloi. So there is a level of Pnimis HaKeser which is higher than the Gulgoylus, which he says the Keser Shaloi Makibalov becomes the Gulgoylus, but then there is a higher level which is the level of Pnimis HaKeser. So we moved it up. It's no longer Moiches Timoah. Moiches Timoah, the Gulgoylus is higher than that. There is the Keser should be Keser. But then there is a level which is even higher. B'zeu inyan reisha v'gulgalto moichi. So the Zohar is some b'zeu parsemer. So you have the reisha, the head, the skull, and the moichi. So the moichi, I guess, we'll see, they're going to explain, is the level of Moiches Timoah. The Gulgoylus is higher than that. But then you have the Reisha, which is higher than Gulgoylus. Einshom b'migdash mel the pirush. Reisha hu iker hakeser shubseid makiv. And that's why he says that it's a makiv. That's higher than Gulgoylus. But Galgalta chitzonis hakeser. So the Galgalta is the chitzonis hakeser. But Ramaz Kosam, and the Ramaz writes that Reisha hu pnimis hakeser, and Galgalta hu simcha tzonis yosei hamispashiv nase Galgalta. K'may shekosam, I don't know the Rosh Davis over here. So that means that what? So that means that the Gulgoylus is actually on a lower level, but there is the Pnimius HaKeser. So the Pnimius HaKeser, which is higher than the level of the Gulgoylus, because the Gulgoylus is the Mispashet, that's the Chitzon Mispashet of Nasik Gal. But Kavanosoi Gamkin Mashakosu Beitz Chaim Sharchov Beis Sefer Vov, which says Achitzon Shelo Hamispashet. Okay, so Im Kain. So what do we get from all this? This seems to be like a contradiction. Why he writes over here? Over here we're saying that what? The B'chinas Moiches Timoah hu abchina pnimis shebekeser she'einu b'minyan esesfiris. Over here, we're saying that Moiches Timoah is the pnimis of the keser, which is not in the counted nesesfiris. And then the Dim Kain, who baday lemayla legamri mebchinas galgalta. So we have to say, according to here, that Moiches Timoah is higher than the galgalta, because the galgalta itself, which is keser, is counted sometimes with the sfiris. But we say that the the pnimis should be keser. When we count the pnimis, then we don't count keser. Why? Because the pnimis keser is moichas timor. So that means that moichas timor is higher than the galgalta. And over here we're saying no. The galgalta there is keser shebi keser, and the pnimis keser. That's the level which is the ratio of a galgalto mechi quotes from the Zohar. But meichas timor. In other words, the issue in front of us is what to do with meichas timor, how to look at the meichas timor. Meichas timor is in Arechampin. And we're saying that that's the pnimius hakesa. And because of the Arechampin pnimius hakesa, that's why it's not counted. That's what we're explaining in the Mamer here in the Eitz Chaim Sharchofei, which he's talking about over here. And over there he says that's why, because it's pnimius hakeser, and in the pnimius hakeser we can't count it. Since we can't count it, it means that moichas timor is higher than the level of the golgalta. It's higher than the level of golgalta. But over there it says no, that the golgalta is even higher than moichas timor. That's the level of a high level. That's the level of, and there's a keser shebi keser. So what's going on over here? Okay, and that is going to go away and explain. But let's continue Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. Okay, it was impossible to really.